Welcome into 5 Wide Fantasy. Today's video, start and sit wide receivers. We take a look at every single game in the slate this week and help you make your decisions for your lineup. Again, if you guys are new, subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed, comment down below with any start sit decisions you need to make. Happy to answer as many as possible. And as well, we're live on Twitch every single Sunday morning at 11 a.m. So if there's anything you guys are looking at in your lineups right before games are about to start, we can certainly help you there. That link down below in the description. Join our Discord. Ryan, not with us today. It's because he's just stealing everybody's money. BetFred has been making way too much money off Ryan giving losing props. So I am here today solo to get that taken care of. Be sure to check out BetFred. Bet 50, get 250 this weekend at BetFred and all NFL season. So go check that out. That link down below. Let's get to the slate. First game up, Detroit, Minnesota. These are two passing defenses that have not been good to start the season. Minnesota, really a veteran secondary that kind of looks like it's a little past its prime, so I'm definitely firing away on Amon-Ra St. Brown this week, but the pass rush for Minnesota has been pretty good so far. It's been good to get Danielle Hunter back, so I'm not looking at a guy like DJ Chark, very reliant on some big plays. I think that's going to be a little bit tougher, considering the offensive line play from the Lions has been pretty bad, one of the worst pass blocking grades in the NFL so far this year. Getting to the Vikings side of the ball, again, this is a Detroit secondary like we talked about. It's slightly improved from last year, but I am still using some of my data from last year to look at these matchups. We're not going to take everything just from 2 weeks of play. So I am still playing Adam Thielen. He had a number of targets last week. I believe he had 8 targets last week. He's still, him and Justin Jefferson, far and away from the rest of the group in terms of routes run. So I would play Adam Thielen absolutely in this matchup. Let's get to the next one here, Baltimore and New England. Baltimore, so far this year, has not been great in coverage. It's continued from last year. I expected it to improve. It hasn't yet. We saw the Dolphins in a game script where they were throwing plenty, able to move the ball through the air. But New England, not too trusting of their passing offense. Baltimore has been really good in terms of pass rush, but this is a good pass blocking unit for the Patriots, always is. So a guy like Jacoby Myers, who's getting plenty of volume, I'm pretty sure he had 13 targets last week, is someone I think I can trust here in what should be a game for New England that they'll need to keep up. I'm not expecting them to win this game, so we can play Jacoby Myers this week. Otherwise, it's been a mix and match of Nelson Aguilar and Devontae Parker. I'm probably not looking to either one of these guys, even though this coverage unit from Baltimore hasn't been great so far this year. On the other side of things, the Patriots, losing J.C. Jackson seems to be a problem defensively for the Pats, so I'm definitely playing Rashad Bateman this week. Probably wouldn't be looking to play. You know what? Now that I think about it, I do think the Ravens might have some trouble running the ball. We don't know about J.K. Dobbins' status. So if you're in a desperate spot, you could play Devin Duvernay this week. It looks like he's the clear 2, but again, very reliant on big plays. So you'd have to be pretty desperate to throw this guy into your lineup this week. Let's move to New Orleans and Carolina. In this game, I'm really surprised in terms of how poor the Saints pass rush has been, but they have still been pretty good in the secondary, not quite as good as last year. So I do think on the Carolina side, I'm always going to be playing DJ Moore. I'm really not ever going to consider a guy like Robbie Anderson or a Shi Smith. Doesn't even matter the matchup, honestly. Maybe against the Lions, I'd consider it if I really needed to, but it's really just DJ Moore. The New Orleans side is where things get interesting. I do think Carolina has a respectable secondary, but their pass rush isn't that great, which will be helpful for Jameis Winston in this game. Chris Olave and Michael Thomas are the two guys I'm definitely looking to play. Olave, 13 targets last week. Him and MT have led the team in routes run. Landry still there, still involved, but Juwan Johnson kind of eating into those slot reps. So I would be looking to play those two, and I'd be a little bit more hesitant in playing Jarvis Landry against a good Carolina secondary. All right, Houston, Chicago. A game here where you think the Bears would be able to move the ball through the air. It seems like they aren't looking to do so. They can get after things on the ground like they did against the Packers here against Houston. I really think that this Houston secondary is far, far improved. If I'm looking at their coverage grade from last year to this year, it's pretty much doubled, which is no surprise. Derek Stingley is a fantastic talent, the rookie corner. I think he's going to be going up against Darnell Mooney a fair bit. For any of you guys that haven't dropped him, you're asking if you should be able to play him this week. I'm probably pretty hesitant to do it. The targets have just been 2 or 3 a game. I know you might think this is a good matchup for them, but I think it's something that they continue to look on the ground. with their backs, and the passing volume just in general, not even just the reception or the target volume for Mooney just isn't there. So Houston side of things, though, we're looking at a Chicago defense that hasn't been great in coverage, hasn't been able to get after the passer at a great rate either. So in this game, Nico Collins has been seeing a significant amount of targets last week. I think he had 7 or 8. So he is someone that if you're in a desperate spot, wouldn't be too bad. The pass protection from the Texans has been pretty good so far this year. So Davis Mills should have some time to work, and this is a chance for Houston's offense to finally get things on track. They haven't been great so far this year. So guys like Brandon Cooks, you're obviously playing. Nico Collins could be considered in a desperate spot, but there are some guys that are rotating in terms of in that third receiver spot. All right. Let's get to Kansas City, Indianapolis. This is a game I'm really excited about this week. This is a game I'm targeting for our parlay, our boosted parlay over at BetFred. I really like what Kansas City can do in the passing game. Gus Bradley has taken over as the defensive coordinator in Indianapolis as they lost the DC Eberflus during the offseason. So Bradley deploys a cover 3 defense that has not been good against Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. In 7 games against Patrick Mahomes and Gus Bradley's defense between both the Raiders and the Chargers, Patrick Mahomes thrown 17 touchdowns. 7 of those touchdowns have been on passes with air yards of 20 plus. So I really like Marquez Valdez-Scantling here. His receiving prop is listed at 40.5. McCall Hardman's status is up in the air. He had an ankle injury last week, but did come back into the game. But that's the type of thing that, the day after things start to feel a lot worse. He's been limited in practice. I do think there's a chance that he doesn't play. Even if he does, I do think Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who's run the most routes on this team, has the chance to really pop off this week with a big play at the very least. So I would be playing him if you're in a deeper league as well. Obviously, Juju Smith-Schuster, I think this entire passing offense has a chance to have a good week. So I'm going to be parlaying that with the over in this game, 50.5. I think Indianapolis will be able to score as well, get things on track with Michael Pittman. Looks like he'll be back and healthy. If he is, I'm definitely playing him in this game. Kansas City defensively actually has looked really good across the board, both in the pass rush and in the secondary. Again, I think things could change. The Chargers last week did deal with some injuries on the offensive line, so that had an effect in them being able to move the ball through the air. Again, I think the Colts defense just looks nothing like it did last year, and a lot of that comes down to scheme. So I like the over 50.5, and I like Marquez Valdez-Scantling over 40.5 receiving yards. That's pretty much everything in this game. I'm not looking to, your Ashton Doolin, Paris Campbell, Alec Pierce in this game, especially with those other two in terms of Alec Pierce coming back from injury, and then Paris Campbell just no volume to show for it in their absences. So really it'd be, if you're really desperate, maybe you could play Alec Pierce or Ashton Doolin, but I would probably lean against it, even though I do like the over in that game. Philadelphia and Washington. This is another good matchup for Philadelphia's passing offense. Again, I've said, me and Ryan have talked about it on the show, we weren't drafting Devontae Smith this year, but if you did, there's absolutely no reason why you wouldn't be playing him here. Another case of the Washington secondary just hasn't improved from last season. I don't expect it to. So we're firing away on Devontae Smith, on A.J. Brown. Washington side of things, the Eagles' coverage grade is very solid, 77 right now through a few weeks here. They were very good last week against the Vikings. I don't know if that's the case of Kirk Cousins in primetime being the worst quarterback to ever exist. Probably has something to do with it. Washington, though, I'm skeptical because I know how good their pass rush can be too, but Washington has been pretty good in terms of pass protection. So I think you can play all 3 of these guys. I think there's a chance in it, but the problem is in a divisional game, the scores tend to be a lot lower. So that is a bit of concern. Curtis Samuel will be the guy I'd be most confident in because of the volume that he's been able to get. He's pretty much almost double any of the other receivers in this offense. So I think you can play all 3 of these guys, but my most confident would be Curtis Samuel, and then Terry McLaurin, and then Jahan Dotson, if that's worth anything to you guys. Let's get to Buffalo, Miami, a game where I think Miami is in for a rude awakening. Tua had a huge week last week. Obviously in a game, again, trailing most of the afternoon against this Baltimore defense. The pass protection for Miami has significantly improved with the addition of Teron Armstead, but the Bills have a 90.2 PFF grade as a pass rushing unit. I think Tua is a player you cannot trust if the pocket is breaking down and on the run. The arm strength just isn't there, and he's not a guy that can make plays with his legs because of his previous hip injuries. So I'm a little worried about playing. You're going to be playing Jalen Waddle. You're going to be playing Tyreek Hill. I'm just tempering expectations after last week. I think Tyreek might be the one that's in for the most down week, just being that Waddle is the more look-to option near the line of scrimmage and over the middle of the field, the places where Tua can look for that safety valve, where Tyreek's the guy that's trying to break big plays. He hadn't had a big game until the latter half when he hit a couple explosive plays. So that's my cause for concern there with Miami. The Buffalo side, Miami is deploying the worst defense in the NFL through 2 weeks. Been terrible. Baltimore moved the ball with ease in that first half. So, Gabriel Davis, who I'm not the biggest fan of, is a player that if he's healthy and ready to go, I would definitely look to play him. They could hit some explosive plays. And of course, Stephon Diggs. So that's everything there in that Miami-Buffalo game. Let's move to a game with the Cincinnati Bengals, who are really desperate for a win here going against the Jets. We could see another game much like the one we saw last year in terms of these teams being able to put up a boatload of points. So T. Higgins, Jamar Chase were firing away. Jets side of things, Garrett Wilson is a guy who you cannot ignore in terms of leading the league in end zone targets, seeing plenty of volume. He's someone I'm definitely playing. And Elijah Moore, leading the team in routes run. He's out there all the time. He just hasn't hit that explosive play yet. I think there's a chance he could do it in this game, even against a good Cincinnati secondary. I'm still running with Elijah Moore week in and week out. That's everything there in Cincinnati and New York. Let's go to Vegas and Tennessee. Two teams very desperate for a win. Need to get on the board, both 0-2. Honestly, seasons could be decided in week 3 for these two teams. I'm not even joking. Las Vegas going to get up against this Tennessee front. I'm a little concerned about Derek Carr being able to move the ball in the air against a really good Tennessee pass rush. And this is just, again, I have massive concerns for the rest of the season with Vegas's pass blocking and protection all around. So Devontae Adams is a player I'm playing. Darren Waller is a guy that, again, at the tight end position you're playing. I'm leaning towards sitting Hunter Renfrow, fresh off of 2 fumbles, that one of them that cost them the game last week. I'm going to try to avoid playing him here. I think Devontae Adams' volume comes back in a game where moving the ball will be more difficult. So we're going to be looking at the more reliable and talented option as opposed to an Arizona defense last week where they could kind of do whatever they wanted offensively. So that's everything on that side. Tennessee, only guy I'm willing to play, and I would play him this week because I have seen the Tennessee or the Vegas defense in terms of pass rush kind of missing Yannick Ngakoue. Obviously, Mason Crosby's still around, but then they've been very good in terms of stuffing the run. But pass rush hasn't been great. So I think Tennessee, who has one of the worst pass blocking grades so far this year, Brian Tannehill might have a little bit more time in this game. I'm going to be playing Treylon Burks. When he's on the field, he's been a target monster, 6+ targets in both of the last 2 weeks. Last week, his route participation was up to 66%. I think that could grow even farther. He's clearly their best option here, and this is a Raiders defense that has been pretty decent, surprisingly, this year. But I do think in terms of talent, Treylon Burks can make plays in one-on-one situations, and that's what he does best. So Treylon Burks is a guy I could play this week. Jacksonville, Chargers. So we look at the Chargers here. Keenan Allen, status again up in the air. I'd be surprised if he plays. This is a game against Jacksonville that I think the Chargers think they can win without him. Mike Williams is a player you'd be playing. Jacksonville, his defense has looked much better. They actually do have a pretty decent coverage grade, and their pass rush has been pretty good. The addition of Trayvon Walker has definitely helped there. So the Joshua Palmer front, I think Joshua Palmer is a guy I'm probably looking to sit if I have some better options that we've talked about so far. I do think the Chargers may lean on the ground game here, and Mike Williams, Gerald Everett are players I'd be looking to play over Josh Palmer. But again, this is a matchup for some of you guys might not want to ignore, so do with that what you will. Jacksonville side of things, Christian Kirk is a weekly play. I don't think any of you guys should be considering sitting this guy. He's the number one option here for Trevor Lawrence, and this is a game the team is 7-point underdogs in, so I think this could be a heavy passing game script. So this is a chance for Christian Kirk to continue to shine. The Chargers in coverage have been pretty much the same as last year, not great on third down. The pass rush is, of course, good, but we've got a Jacksonville offense in terms of pass blocking grade that's been all right so far this year. So Christian Kirk would be the only guy I'd really consider playing on the Jacksonville side in terms of the wide receivers. Atlanta, Seattle. I really like, I've talked about this earlier this week with the addition on the waiver wire of adding Marcus Mariota. I'm really high on Atlanta in terms of their passing offense this week and just their offense in general against Seattle. Seattle has been terrible as a coverage unit, and in terms of getting after the passer, haven't been great either. So this is a chance for Atlanta to move the ball in through the air. Kyle Pitts, Drake London are guys I'm definitely playing. Seattle side of things, Atlanta's coverage grade has been pretty good so far. Okay getting after the passer. I'm going to be playing DK Metcalf in this game because, again, this is a matchup where you obviously are playing DK in because of how early the draft capital was spent, and we're only in week 3 here. The big question, I guess, would be Tyler Lockett. Coming off a heavy dosage of targets, I believe he had 11 last week, had a solid week. So he's a player that, depending on what's available on your bench, certainly a player you guys can fire away in the comments of comparing some other guys, is someone you could play because, again, this is a matchup where the game would be a little bit more competitive and easier for this team to score. My problem is just the pass blocking has not been good so far for Seattle through the first 2 weeks. Moving to the Rams and Cardinals. This is a Cardinals matchup where you think they'd be able to move the ball through the air. My concern would be, can they do anything on the ground if James Conner's back, if he's not back, to be able to move the chains for this offense. I think they're going to be heavily focused on the pass game. Marquise Brown is a player I'm playing week in and week out. The question is, can you throw in a guy like AJ Green? Can you throw in a guy like Greg Dortch? I would probably lean against it. I would probably be more looking solely at Marquise Brown and Zach Ertz as options to play this week. Rams side of things, this is an Arizona defense that's been terrible so far. I don't see that changing here in this matchup. I'd be playing Allen Robinson off a big week, and of course Cooper Kupp. That's pretty much everything there. I mean, I'm a little concerned of whether or not this offense for Arizona is going to be able to be consistent. They've just been so up and down. And the early parts of the game, they have not been able to move the ball. Marquise Brown is the only guy I can really trust there that I'd be willing to stick my neck out and say to play. Let's get to Green Bay, Tampa Bay. Now, this is a game that's got a lot for us to go through, the injuries being the big thing. We've got Sammy Watkins, Randall Cobb, Christian Watson, Allen Lazard, all not practicing as of Thursday. So it's hard to say what to do here because this is a Tampa Bay defense that has the best coverage grade in the NFL through 2 weeks. They've been fantastic. Their pass rush hasn't been as good, but they've been very good in the secondary. So honestly, I think if Allen Lazard is available, he's a guy you could play. Otherwise, this is a really good coverage team from Tampa. I think they're going to be using their backs more because this Tampa Bay front has not been as good as it was last year in terms of against the run. So maybe we have a chance here for Green Bay to focus on the backs, both in the pass game and on the ground. And again, very banged up. Tampa Bay, another case here of injuries. We got 2 DNPs for Julio Jones and for Chris Godwin. I'd be surprised if they play. I think the addition of Cole Beasley speaks to that. I think they add Beasley through free agency because they know these 2 guys probably aren't going to be available. So Brashad Perriman and Russell Gage are the two options you guys would have to look at. This is a Green Bay defense that is missing Zadarius Smith, so they haven't been as great getting after the passer, which can be helpful for a Tampa Bay offensive line that is very banged up and has not been very good so far this year. But again, this is a really good Green Bay defense and secondary, so it's really tough to make a decision with these 2. I'd probably lean more towards Russell Gage as the slot option, just with Brashad Perriman getting those tougher matchups against Jair Alexander. So I think if you added Brashad Perriman off the wire, there's a chance that you're wanting to play him. It's something you could do in a game that still with two great quarterbacks should be able to score, but two very good defenses, and this Tampa Bay offense has struggled so far. So I'd be hesitant to play either one, but Russell Gage would be the player I'd lean to more often than not. Getting to Sunday night, 2 games left here. San Francisco, Denver. I think Denver is the status of Jerry Jeudy's still up in the air. Early in the week, they were confident he would be back. We're late in the week now, and he's not practicing. and it's in a limit. I believe he wasn't even practicing earlier or as of Thursday. So that is going to be very much up in the air. San Francisco's defense has one of the best coverage grades in the NFL. They're still able to get after the passer. But I do think here this is a chance for Denver with a very good pass blocking unit. I think they could get things on track because I don't think this San Francisco secondary is as good as it's been through the first few weeks. And Denver at home here, I do like Cortland Sutton. And if Jerry Jeudy plays, I think he's someone you can go to. I think there'll be points in this game. San Francisco is another one, I think, where there's more of a conversation point. Again, we have another injury in the running back room, and that's important when you talk about these pass catchers because I do think Debo will be well involved on the ground. So I think that makes Brandon Ayuk a player you can play. If George Kittle's back, he's someone you can play. Denver, very good coverage grade so far, but very banged up in the secondary. I think Pat Surtain might be back, dealing with the injury to Justin Simmons. So that's a problem. So I am willing to play all of these guys in this matchup. I think there could be points in this game, surprisingly, even though these two teams haven't been able to score too much through the first 2 weeks. I think that could change here. So that's kind of the thoughts on Sunday night's game, which should be a great one. Let's get to Monday night. Giants, Cowboys. Man, this one's tough because Dallas's pass rush has been very good so far, and I don't have a lot of faith in the Giants in terms of pass pro. Daniel Jones has been under a ton of pressure through the first 2 weeks. So if you added Sterling Shepard off the wire, you're asking me, can you play him? I'd probably lean against it. I think this game will be low scoring. I don't trust any Giants pass catchers. I'm only willing to play a guy like Saquon Barkley, really, even against Dallas's defense. On the Cowboys side of things, CeeDee Lamb is a weekly play. I don't think there's really anything else to consider here of a Noah Brown or Houston or really anyone else, even with the Noah Brown Cooper Rush connection that displayed itself last week. It's really only CeeDee Lamb. So CeeDee Lamb is really the only pass catcher I'm looking at in this game, just with the way things are in Dallas with Cooper Rush and QB. All right, that's pretty much everything in each and every matchup here. Let us know, again, if there's any start-sit decisions you're trying to make. Happy to answer as many as possible. Join our Discord as well. And again, we will be live on Twitch on Sunday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern. That link is down below in the description. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time.